Carolyn said she might be a little bit late. Are we able to go ahead with the meeting with 4?
Yep. Very good. 4:07. Right.
And is somebody gonna take notes?
Oh yeah, good question. Anna's not here. She's our secretary. So someone else wants to type up.
I can take notes, but I don't have a device.
Yeah, you can use this. So that should be saved on here, and you can just type underneath it and wherever, hopefully.
Thank you.
Alright, we'll call the meeting to order. And roll call. Carolyn is not on Zoom. Anna is not here. Tim?
I'm here.
Callie?
Sure.
Crystal is not on Zoom yet.
Nope.
Sean?
Here.
We don't have a youth advisory liaison. Carl's here.
Here.
And Keith?
You're here.
Alright, next is approval of the minutes from the Wednesday, January 3rd meeting. Everybody get a chance to look at those?
February 7th meeting? Did I give you the January 3rd?
I saw, oh, no, I'm looking at, yes, no, you gave me the February, sorry. February 6th, Wednesday, February 6th meeting. Everybody get a chance to look at those?
Yes.
Anybody want to,
I'll move to approve them.
I'll second it. Alright. And then move on to public comment. Any public comment? Nope. Anybody on Zoom for that?
Kelly is joining. Kelly, would you like to, do you have any public comment?
Sorry about that, I don't even know how to unmute it. No, I don't, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Carolyn just joined as well. Can you hear us, Carolyn?
Breaking my door full.
Mute that.
So we can move on to discussion items.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
It's you.
Yep, so I will be presenting on the Capital Parks improvements. So at the last board meeting, we presented kind of the parks, the port lineup of things we have going on. And then a big portion of that was, of course, Richardson Park and getting feedback on that as well. So where that kind of ended up at the end of that, I think kind of got two directions. One was with the Arboretum, and that was for staff to bring that back and possibly move to construction documents on that project, which would, staff was gonna bring it back and basically show where that money would come from. And then the second thing was creating a survey, which I know Port brought up in February meeting, having a survey that would go out regarding the Richardson Park project and the survey, and that's what we're gonna lead to today. So I'm gonna lead you through all these parks projects. You can basically give the same presentation the board got to see. It's kind of lined up. It's just kind of like a hypothetical, this is how it could work type thing. Nothing's set in stone other than kind of this year where we have some money in the budget for. So after that, we'll have a discussion on creating surveys. So the board kind of recommended Fort creates a survey, kind of leads how that survey gets put out, and so I sent you the other surveys as well to look through, and we'll get a new survey going. So start off with, we'll look at these.
Keith,
Yes.
sorry, did you see, I sent you an email, with like
survey that I made.
Yep, I got it. I
Okay,
will,
okay.
show it here.
Very rough draft, but I tried.
Thank you. We'll look at it in a little bit. Okay, so going through the Parks capital projects, I'm gonna start off with kind of a funding breakdown because we're gonna talk about some of these, so I might see where staff kind of thinks these fit right now. Can everyone see that, or is it pretty small?
Can you expand it a little? As I reach for my glasses.
So currently going on right now, 2024, we have the Town Park Phase 1. We have the North Berthoud Parkway Trail. This has been going on for a little while now, but there's money been budgeted for that. We put some money in there for some improvements for the bike park for this year. Pioneer Park Community Garden, this is actually to be determined still. We just got the design done. I don't think it's gonna cost $150,000 to do some garden beds and move some land, but I think it was just placed in there. And then the Farmstead Playground, which the board approved funding to help complete the budget needed for that project. And that's Lauren's adaptive park project is what she calls it. Lauren Bowling, she presented here.
The Farmstead Playground is
Mhm.
the adaptive.
Mhm.
What's the difference between the text in the numbers in black and the numbers in green?
I think green are solid in the budget. That known funding is placed in there.
The funding's in place if it's in green,
Yeah,
and if
Yeah.
it's in black, it's
somewhat
projected?
projected, yeah.
Okay.
And the only one I can tell is way off is this one. Then underneath it kind of tells you which fund it's coming out of. A lot are coming out of the Park Development Fund. As we get into 2025, assuming we start construction documents this year on the Arboretum, it could possibly mean the construction of the Arboretum then would start in 2025. And that's it doesn't mean it automatically happens. There's another process where we get the construction documents done, lock in all the design features and keys like that, and then the board would approve again to move on to putting the park in.
Do you mind if I ask what the difference between the park development and 2019 1% fund is?
Gonna make a guess at it. I didn't write those down. And this Carl knows, I'm guessing, does park development come out of new development?
Park development comes out of new developments that pay into a specific fund.
Understood.
And then the
Okay.
2019 1% is the
sales
taxes,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you.
And then this other one has a grant because there's a grant through CDOT that we got through
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that.
We have Larimer County Open Space Fund, which is like a Larimer County tax that we receive. And then the Conservation Trust, I'm also not fully sure how that one gets funded, but I don't know if that's another.
The Conservation Trust, I think, is the new pot that we set aside for different kinds of conservation lands that get either donated or sold or bought.
Okay.
And that's a way to specifically address open space
Great,
acquisitions.
cool, thank you.
I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's
No,
what that is.
I mean, that's all very helpful, I appreciate that, especially that 20, I was always curious about the 2019 1% kind of, that it is its own pot, so, understood.
Next on the list is also in 2025 that could happen is this Heron Lakes Rookery Trail. Juskowski property, which we're working on conceptual design. It's kind of starting right now. We have a conceptual design for the Roberts Lake East that maybe some of you from Port were here when we did that design. And then Richardson, these projects, these properties are listed here because there's no time slot for them yet. Richardson, Town Park Phase 2, Newell Farm Park, and Knievel Park. So now I'm gonna kind of go through a handful of these projects in more detail, just make sure you all remember them. The community garden, we're still finalizing the design. It's gonna look something like this. So we basically just beds of different heights, in-ground planting areas, potted planting areas. This area will actually probably be flipped again. talking with Bertha Local about it. We might run these east-west instead of north-south again. There's a picnic table, kind of an area where they can maybe hold some lessons and stuff like that. And there's a couple Boy Scout projects. I don't know if there's any Girl Scouts projects that might pop in here too. Looking at these, there's like the little library stand. There's a compost bin, which there's a Boy Scout that might already do that one. There's an insect hotel, so a couple of projects listed in there. Roberts Lake, there's this east field next to Roberts Lake. It's undeveloped. It's just a grass field basically. It just gets mowed, and that's all we do with it. It has a channel that drains water out of Roberts Lake. Roberts Lake is constantly filling, likely with groundwater. It also collects some stormwater, but there's an outflow for it. The groundwater comes from this Vantage development down into here, and which is probably coming over from the Loveland Reservoir as a result. So this thing's always running with water down it, draining water. So during the conceptual design, we just wanted it to be a passive recreation area. So it just has some trails. We thought maybe that channel could look a little better and more natural or something like that. So there were some rock bouldering type features there. There was a nursery planned here. We don't think it's probably going to end up there. If we do the nursery at the Arboretum, we won't need a tree nursery here. So we just plugged one in there because we were looking for a new spot. The tree nursery down at Hillsdale is not the best spot for a tree nursery. The former arborist was kind of a test location. We found a spot. That area down there, the water, the ground level, it's full of salt. It's not the best permanent home for a tree nursery, but it's still working and they're still using it, and they're putting trees in there and then pulling them out a couple years later. So.
And will any of that turf, I'm guessing it's bluegrass, but will any of that be kept, or what's the plan for kind of that upland area around that channel that's turf right now?
Oh, it will stay the same.
Okay, just curious.
We sent this, when we got done with the conceptual design, we handed out letters to all the neighbors just to get some feedback, what they thought. Someone had just put some solar panels up, so they said, like, hey, we don't like these trees being right here, so some trees and stuff. There was questions on how are we gonna manage it? Can we still get out from our gates out to this area? Are we spraying a lot? We have a pollinator garden type things like that, so nothing too concerning with this design. And going back, I'm just gonna pop up to this project list. So we kind of have the bigger projects going on. Town Park Phase 1. These are 2018 master plan projects. Following Town Park, it's always been start on Richardson. So then sprinkled in there are kind of some of these smaller projects. So usually there's a big project, and then we have a couple smaller ones we can probably do in some like off years, maybe. So, from my experience, just all these projects, people are asking us to get them done in some way. Not all from the same area, but someone is asking, so when is this gonna be open? So the Duskowski property conceptual design, we're about to have a staff kickoff meeting with Wink. So once we get through, we have your suggestions, we're gonna sit down with Wink, make sure they got them all. They're gonna give us a couple designs. So I would guess we might not see this till maybe the May meeting, but it could be June when we see a couple designs to talk through. With this property, I brought on here the Front Range Trail connection. So this area is known. This is over, there's the Heron Lakes. They kind of have a little maintenance shed over here off County Road 14, right off the golf course. Up here is this area called the Eagle Vista Natural Area. We actually helped purchase this area with Loveland. I don't have all the details of it, but we gave some money to fund it, to buy it. There's a golden eagle's nest on this property. Golden eagles are kind of rare in the Front Range. There's only a couple of nesting sites that are currently used. They've been on the property for over 50 years. So Loveland is trying to use this property as a way to get down to the trail connection with us. And they have approval from this property owner to run along their property line. to make this trail connection. So what they've been having to do though is they've been dealing with the Audubon Society, Foothills Audubon Society, Golden Eagle supporters, and they created this Eagle Vista property management plan, and it was just approved about a month. Yeah, it was approved in February, early February. I went to the meeting because I showed up just to basically try to be a supportive part of the meeting, and for the most part, a lot of people were there. Not a lot. 8 people were there to speak about the Golden Eagles. And Melanie said the management plan looks great. The eagles eat little mammals, and there's like 3 prairie dog colonies on the property.
Go Eagles.
So the management plan is basically creating habitat for little mammals to thrive in, so the eagles have tons of little mammals to eat. So it's keeping the prairie dog colonies happy, and then also kind of fixing up some of the grassland within there, so there's more mammal habitat. Kind of one of the key things that kept getting brought up is there used to be a half-mile buffer from the eagle. New studies are showing you need a mile buffer for the prairie dog colonies too, also included in there, because I think there's a colony up here by this trail site, so they don't, if the trail's going right next to that colony, they don't think the eagles will use that colony anymore to eat from, so. But the plan got approved, so I think it's gonna keep moving forward. Now, with that said, they're gonna work on this property for a few years, and they don't think they'll build the trail till 2027. By that time, they gotta do some land restoration and stuff first.
Did they mention, I think I read on this slightly a while back, I think they already cited the trail as far away from the eagle nest as they can. Is that, or
Yeah.
out of sight?
It
Out of
is,
sight for some part of it too because of ridge. I don't know if that's true, but
from what I'm told, this area is kind of lower,
yeah,
and the eagles, you can't see the eagle's nest. You sometimes see them flying up above,
yeah,
and then also these homeowners can't see the trail as well either.
gotcha.
It's kind of in this low area. The buffer does kind of, it's right in the buffer. It's like right on the edge of it, that half-mile buffer.
Right.
What's interesting though is the eagle's nest blew down a few weeks ago.
Hmm.
Right, it was actually, I guess, in early February.
Huh.
So that eagle's nest, they could build a new nest closer to the trail, and then the trail's gone, basically. So they're kind of, whatever these eagles do, they're kind of mercy of them. So
Yeah. Did they mention coordination with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and CPW or any of that detail at all?
yeah, they're very involved with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because they're following basically everything Parks and Wildlife and the other, they've got all the
Yeah.
approval from them. It's just the
Yeah.
support from the Foothills Audubon Society.
Tough. Yeah. Yeah, I deal with them. I'm dealing with them right now on the Chimney Hollow project above town. We have an active nest up there. So,
Of what?
Golden Eagle.
Golden Eagle?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Year to year we have to deal with that and coordinate with Fish and Wildlife Service to, make sure we do everything we can to
Mhm.
avoid and minimize impacts there. And sited the quarry, right at a half mile to try to keep it out of the buffer. And there's a lot of work done on that. So, yeah, I think this should work out, but it's always tough dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
sensitive locals that are concerned, but trail should work out.
So random question, are the
Sure.
eagles related?
Are they related?
Yeah,
I-
cause that's close.
As far as genetics go, I mean, I don't think anybody knows for sure. There's definitely a chance. The nest site we have up in above Chimney Hollow is, very old, nest site too. I don't know how many years it goes back, but pre-project, I think in like 2017, we started survey there and found that nest and have been dealing with it during construction. So, yeah, as long as Fish and Wildlife Service in the end,
Oh yeah.
the feds are, they're really, and they're very conservative about how they manage around these, so.
Mhm.
It's exciting, it's exciting that property was preserved, a little bit of a buffer between Loveland and Berthoud as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all these properties are conservation easements.
Yeah, it's great.
So I'd asked them to tell me where they built a new nest, I guess, but
Yeah,
we're pretty much where we're involved is the developer is supposed to build our connection right here. And I think that's Heron Lakes 12 or 17. I can't remember the filing, but they're going through that plat phase right now. And I don't know exactly which phase, but they're gonna build. They're in charge of putting that trail in, so it's kind of easy for us. It's really hard for Loveland.
That bold yellow, not the dash within the parcel, but to the north there, complete solid yellow line,
Yeah,
is that existing trail or what?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I don't think
okay,
they have that yet, and I also, some of this might be like a kind of gravel roads.
Okay,
I know that they're utilizing.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
So, like I said, 2027 at the earliest. Um, we got a contract with Loveland to work on the design for the crossing, just like how that's gonna look, and kind of just waiting for them to get a hold of us to move forward with any of that, but be a little bit. The North Bertha Parkway Trail connection. We're at the moment we're just waiting for CDOT to give us the go ahead to do this. We've answered all their questions. We've done all the whatever all the environmental surveys and stuff we're supposed to do for that. This connection would, is this Lake or Water, Lakeview or Water Avenue? I think this is Water. We would build a mast type crossing that would go over the road. So you push a button and it would stop, flashing red lights would stop traffic to cross Bertha Parkway. These portions in red are only going to be crusher fine trail at the moment. And that's because this property, the park property, is not developed yet, and if you build a concrete trail, we're probably gonna have to rip this area up, so. It's gonna currently go up, it's gonna go up on top of the bridge and back down, and that's because I guess there's still conversations going on with the ditch company about getting across the ditch. This portion of the trail would be concrete. And then we have a trail right here that already runs on Hammond. We could use the overpass, and then this will be crusher fines as well, and that's because this area is technically supposed to be developed by Heron Lakes, so they would be in charge of putting in a permanent trail there. And that would lead to the end of this road here, which is the start of the Rook Root Trail that we have. Any questions on this, or?
I know at the meeting they were talking a little bit about gates and all of that conversation. Is there any plan to put up a similar gate over here since you said Heron Lakes is gonna develop this area?
Like, across the road? I don't think so. I don't think there's any plating or anything like that's been done with this that I know of. Those gates that were approved or approved like 8 years ago, maybe?
Yeah,
Something like that.
First couple phases, I think.
Yeah, they like got snuck in there. And that's still, I mean, you can see the gates. They've been up the whole time, but it's just they have to be left open, or when you pull up to them, they have to open. Like that's always been the rule. So I don't think they can get any more gates in, if I had to guess. So it's not the trail we want yet, but it will be a connection, right? Ideally it's gonna go over the ditch, and you're not gonna have to get up on the road and go over. Again, hopefully it starts this year as well. So that leads us to, we call it the Rickery Trail. We ended over here on County Road 10E. Just kind of a maintenance road that runs along here. This is similar, like at the reservoir, we just had a maintenance road that went around the reservoir, and we just kind of turned that into a trail. So we pretty much do the same thing here. Part of this road is owned by the ditch company, so there's that conversation going on again. This is we talked with Colorado Parks and Wildlife about this because we have a heron nesting site located here that requires a 300-yard buffer between April 1st and August 31st. It's around those dates. Which means you're not supposed to go in there at that time. So in previous board meetings, we've talked about, okay, maybe we can do like a little loop here that would be open all the time, and then sometime you'd be able to do this 2.3 mile loop and go all the way back there, which the herons, I mean, I know the Audubon Society knows about these herons, so they're concerned about them. They've talked to me about them, so we're gonna have to probably, I mean, we'll work with Parks and Wildlife on it, but you know, this might be a property where we have to do a management plan for the whole area. And I know the herons nesting up there, but they're catching fish out there, I'm pretty sure, in the water. What's interesting is, I mean, there's a sportsman's club here around this area. And I mean, they're walking around there all the time. I think they're allowed to walk around there. People are boating in Lone Tree Reservoir all the time, and they're not everyone is following the 300-yard book. I would say, but we don't go back there as a town between these months. We don't go mow or anything like that. I know there was talks earlier that the developer would have to put in possibly a temporary trail connection or trail head at that location, or it could be the town doing that. I'm not sure where that's gonna lead. Again, it'd be temporary because the developer's gonna redo all this property and then put a permanent trailhead there. That's Rookery. This year, we're looking into more bike park improvements, trying to get some shade out there, pavilion. We're I mean, this is a napkin sketch. This is very early. We have a bunch of things that have been brought up to try to work into this. If you go out there now, the material storage site is actually located up here. We're kind of keeping it close to the road for deliveries and stuff like that. So we don't think it's gonna go back here anymore. But if we focus on what we're gonna try to fit in here, should be a pavilion right here. We're trying to expand the kids area a little more. We had a pump track. We tried to put down like a side of the pump track that the little kids would hopefully use. I mean, we keep being told we think the kids need their own pump track because the little kids get on it and they're a little slower and stuff like that. So, you can put in little pump tracks like it's shown over here on the bottom right, and then maybe there's a little expansion of the skills playground course. That would be a little harder than maybe the current playground is right now. So we're getting prices and designs on that. There's also this other kind of course I got brought up called a trials course, where you basically just have boulders and logs and you're hopping on your bike from there. Pretty advanced stuff, probably. So
I only chuckle because it's just such. It's hard to picture a lot of use.
yeah.
On the trials course, yeah. I mean, they're very neat, unbelievable to watch, but yeah, there's very few out there that.
And that's one we think we can put together ourselves maybe.
Yeah.
We might just start with a handful of big boulders and
Yeah, look nice.
I know Paul's keeping logs and stuff around, and we might try to put them together ourselves. So once we get something locked down, this will come to Port and we'll kind of be like, hey, here's what we're thinking. What do you guys think about it? So, anyone got any ideas now they want to throw out there, or?
I would say that's probably the most utilized portion of the bike park, just based on what I see. Like driving along 287 and from our house, it seems like there's, on a good day, there's very concentrated number of people. And you're right, I mean, even my 11, 12-year-old goes out there and he's intimidated to get on the pump track. Cause it's, you know, and I mean, most people are good, most people are kind and give them a little space to do the things, but not everybody is, and not everybody's patient. And so I think there would be a need for something for smaller kids. I mean, Henry's fine, he can hold his own, but smaller kids, I think, would really walk away. I don't think they would get out there with that many people on there.
Gotcha.
Cause there's kind of like you see, I mean, you've been out there, you see it's kind of, there's like an unwritten process to it. And sometimes somebody will get out there and start going the other way or doing something out of the ordinary, and it's, those little kids don't get it, and they're scared and.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's just the bike park seems to be so well loved and it's so young still. And yeah, there's a lot of guys ripping through that pump track that are, you know, full adults, and
Oh, yeah.
not to say they shouldn't be, but it's just one of those things like, yeah, my daughter, there's no chance. They see that and they're like, no, I'm gonna try that. So I agree with adding a kids, you know, some element for the kids would be awesome. And yeah, the trials course looks cool, but it's hard to picture that getting a ton of use. So
Okay.
not an opposition statement either, just one of those things, just thinking out loud.
Okay. No,
But
it's good.
would definitely agree with you on something for the little ones, especially that 5, 6, 7, 8,
Oh, yeah.
9, 10, you know, those, yeah.
And we're talking about the same company that, you know, built this.
Yeah.
So these little pump tracks, these aren't asphalt or anything, they're kind of just put together, you know what I mean?
They're very fun, so, yeah.
Yeah, so they're not, it's not as hard of a process for us to probably get them installed like the other pump track. This pump track involved a bunch of drainage and stuff going in and underneath it, so.
I think that's why you have so many folks coming from elsewhere. It's just, it's such a nice, I mean, it's really a nice pump track.
I
You
know.
don't see that often.
And we're trying to figure out the balance of opening the park for just the pump track. I mean, it's a big request we're getting to open it up when it's ready to go. So we're working through it.
How's been the use during, wet dirt conditions? Has there been a lot of folks riding it and riding it up after thaw or rain?
They get out there, it's like they try to go down the jump lines once and then they get off.
They're done. Yeah,
But, I mean, I know it annoys our staff that they're
Oh,
going
yeah.
out there. And
absolutely.
so it is
It is
pretty,
happening.
I'd say it's almost every week still.
It is. No, it's too bad.
It's like they get up to the jump, they sink in, and then they just see the footprints walking off.
Can I ask a question? Where is the proposed shade, addition of shade on this diagram?
So I just have a pavilion kind of,
The pavilion?
yeah,
Okay.
rolling right there. And then Paul's working on getting some more trees and stuff out there.
Was there shade going in at the heads of the, like, each of the other spots at the top of each of those runs?
Not proposed yet, but something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I think you see kind of people grouping at the very north end where those trails all start and take off, and then you
Mhm.
see them in the middle there where those trails start and take off, and you get, even in the wintertime when I drive by, there's like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people standing up there.
Yeah.
So it might be something, I mean, even if it's some kind of, not a pavilion necessarily, like shade sails or something to create some shade at the top there where they're waiting, because they kind of line up and wait as they go.
Okay, so those previous projects, I don't think any of them were on the 2018 Parks Master Plan. And this is the plan staff has been working through. It included Wagner Farm Park, and the Recreation Center, the renovation of Town Park was on this plan, Richardson Park, and Knievel, and it was the town staff and board and community trying to figure out what are our priorities and kind of what are we trying to hit. So trails always pops up as like one of the highest priorities, get the trail connections going. The recreation center was pretty big. The aquatics, which when I, looking at those surveys and plans, I don't think it was specific enough for what kind of aquatics. I think that's what we're talking about now.
Yeah, that was my big observation. Aquatics doesn't mean much, or it means different
Yeah.
things to many people. It's a more of a planning term than describing what the actual use is.
Mhm.
So anyhow, when we get into later discussion, I have suggestions for a vocabulary that is more associated with a pool, where swimming is a sport
Yep.
as opposed to play areas.
Gotcha. That'll be good. So what's been done so far is Wagner Recreation Center. Town Park's on its way right now. Well, we have a design for both phases, but Town Park Phase 1 is underway. So the next phase was to go out to Richardson, and that's where we're kind of in this discussion right now. So I'm just running you through these. Town Park, this is like what was on the 2018 plan, which was said it was gonna have playgrounds, pavilions. It said tennis court, but we got rid of the tennis court, really. I think we just kept one at Fickle. So it had splash pads. So, I mean, what's interesting to us is like, we knew the pool was coming out. I mean, there was an agreement to put a splash pad here at some point. And not bring back a pool in this site, which,
Keith? This screen is frozen.
Oh,
Should bring it to you.
I'm not gonna be able to. Oh, I
Show
feel
me
like,
where the at symbol is in there.
oh, there you go.
Okay.
Wait, it's
No,
moving.
that's, the arrow's moving, but I can't find that. Let me start typing, there's nothing there. Okay,
You're good?
Yep.
I think, I don't know what we did. Yeah.
thank you.
Phase two for this is, I mean, it's just on hold, there's no, the whole idea with the ball fields is we won't do the ball fields until we add more ball fields throughout town, so. This is the latest rendition of the playground that we have, just so you all can see it. There was feedback to, this is that top north corner. They kind of had two little ramp structures. We had them combine them all and then make it so if someone was in a wheelchair, they could get all the way around and use it. Change some of the play material cover, like ground covering and stuff as well. But I'm pretty sure this is the one we're probably gonna move forward with, something like this.
And I think you'd mentioned this, but is this the same vendor that you all use for the Pioneer Park new addition on the north side of the pond?
Yeah,
Okay, it's really nice stuff. It looks, yeah, it looks like good equipment.
yeah. So in the piece, like this piece right here is gonna be similar, kind of to that piece out there. The rest of it's all from other different type of vendors, I guess. So, and they're also, I mean, the company doing this, they're also doing the adaptive farmstead playground.
Oh, they
so,
are great.
yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. It's nice to see the color too, just the natural tones. Not always a fan of the super bright yellows and reds and everything myself. So
I agree with that. A reminder what phase two looks like, because this conceptual, I believe it might already be construction documented out as well, because you know, all been done. Because there's connections going from this site over to this site, like utility lines and stuff. So when phase one gets done, I think there's gonna be a thought that, you know, there is a lot of concrete in this site. There's a splash pad. There isn't giant fields to run through or anything like that. I mean, this baseball field, softball field will still be over here. But once the second phase gets built, then you're gonna have a lot of openness over on this side of the park. So you're gonna have the big green. There's a pavilion that could also be, I think it was also planned out, it could be used as like a stage venue as well in there. An area for food trucks that could come in and park along here. Extra little playground and a couple memorial site locations. That is currently the phase two plan. Phase one seems to be going all right. This, you can tell this playground shape has shifted. It doesn't look like that anymore. But they're about to start concrete, and you'll start to see all the sidewalks and stuff building through, and then, you know, in a couple months we'll start seeing sod and stuff go down. So I think the hope is it's still open this fall at some point. Brookwood Arboretum, latest update is it's going to the board on March 12th for them to approve funding to continue with construction documents.
And is that, I don't know if we know the answer to this, but as far as the funding goes, is that from that sales, that 1%?
It either
Sales
come
tax, or
from
is this
that
from-
or it come from our general fund.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Either of those probably.
Cool.
The Knievel Park concept plan, so, I mean, this one's just out there, there's no timeline on when this could be accomplished. So, essentially,
Is there a timeline on the development going in there? Do you know?
not that I know of.
Is that part of TPC or?
This would be, yeah.
Okay.
And then Newell Farm Park, our newest newest addition. So, probably only update with this for sure is we'll go look at it in June. Maybe do our tour, we usually do that first week of June. Just as a reminder for everyone, usually we go out on like a Tuesday or Wednesday. Alright, so that brings us back to these funding choices. And I'll go back to, so the question for the board of the night was just feedback input, capital parks projects and prioritization for 2024 and beyond. So if we go back to this funding, I think with the board meeting, it was definitely brought up. It's a big project, Richardson Park mainly. Board could have decided to move forward with Richardson Park as it was, but I mean, it's a huge price tag. It's more than the rec center and everything like that, so.
What was that price tag again?
We have on here 18 to 55 million.
Oh, it's right in front of me.
And just like
Sorry.
the first phase itself would be 18,
Okay.
likely 18 million. And that first phase was building some parking lots and 4 athletic fields. So there was thoughts on, okay, are the priorities right? Is the design of the property right? Is there other priorities that might be more important that the town should accomplish first? Is along those lines, Carl, you can jump in if you think there's anything else added in here, but I think we're gonna try to work on a survey now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the general consensus was $18 million is a lot of money for a full service park, basically. The population of the town has grown since the 2018 survey was carried out, and there was a lot of community feedback about the pool, which wasn't part of the first phase of the proposed $18 million project. And so the idea was, since the Arboretum is pretty much agreed upon by the community and generally by the board, although I can't speak for everyone, right? That seemed to kind of be a non-issue. That's also rather expensive, right? $6.5 million. Maybe we should take a step back, resurvey the community, see if ball fields are still the most important thing. Is a pool the most important thing? Should it go here? Should it go somewhere else? What does the community 6 years later want? Do they still want to move forward with this huge giant project, which is the construction documents or the planning documents are moving forward? That was not an issue, right? We've decided to kind of, I think this is correct, right? We decided to go ahead and finish the documents, the design phases of both the Arboretum and Richardson, and just kind of see where it goes, because we're gonna have to pay for those anyway. But what does the town want to happen in this space, if anything at all, right now? Does that
Yeah,
basically sum it up?
yep, I forgot that.
So
Sure.
are you saying that you feel that the 18 million will provide phase 1 only?
Yes.
And the survey would be intended to say, do we wanna reduce ball fields and add a pool during phase 1?
I think the survey's gonna be basically up to you guys to lead. What kinds of questions do you want to ask? What focus do you want to put on the survey? Am I correct in that? Is that
Yep.
the port committee's
Yeah.
gonna lead that?
Mhm.
So it's really up to you, right? Do you guys want to ask, do you want ball fields or a pool? Or do you want to ask, do you want ball fields and a pool? What's more important, ball fields and a pool, or ball fields or a pool? That's really up to you guys as the committee to decide how you want to present that to the community.
I went back and looked at the 2016 survey, and I mean, a lot of the questions I think could just sort of be copy and pasted in terms of, you know, looking at things like degree to which current facilities meet Berthoud's needs. I thought it was interesting in 2016, ball fields were rated as the #1 thing that was meeting the community needs, and pools were rated second to last as meeting community needs. Now, this is before the rec center was built, so that is something to think about, but this was also before town pool was taken out. And so things like that, you know, we kind of traded one for the other. And so I think asking people, you know, how well do you think these are meeting the needs of the town, as well as what do you think the priorities are? Because you're always going to get, you know, people who are more interested in one thing than another. But I think I like the way that it was laid out, and it kind of gave you that span of not at all, somewhat, you know. And so, you know, those that don't use it as much would still say, oh yeah, I mean, it's good, I like it, that kind of thing. But I think what I heard just from people I talked to was very much just like we talked about at the board meeting and at the port committee meeting, that I'm not sure where the thought process came, and maybe it was that I believe there was a pool in the rendering of Richardson Park in 2018. There was not.
So this
It was just a aquatics center, like they're, right, yeah,
This would be I don't.
Meaning splash pad or what?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
a water feature, I
Gotcha.
think.
Well, I think what was brought up at the last meeting is there was this general idea that when the town park pool went away, that there would be a pool at Richardson. So people equated what was used at the town park with what the town was considering providing once again, which isn't a splash pad only. So I don't think the public may have received enough detailed information for them to decide, you know, what they wanted or what they were expecting.
Right, I mean, there was no pool listed in Richardson, so, staff working on this design kind of thought it'd be a great idea to throw kind of a water park pool in there. And I also just wanna throw in some other things, so, I think it was also said that site, Richardson wouldn't be the site of a lap lane pool. A lap lane pool would be built at the rec center, on the outside, south side of the rec center.
Oh, an outdoor, okay, gotcha, in addition.
Right, so if we were gonna build a lap lane pool, that would be the site.
So it's not an option to put one in at Richardson, is that what you're saying? Because that's never been brought up as it not being an option all along.
From what I remember, it's
I understand that they put in the
So-
plumbing for a
it's an
pool.
option, but because of the plumbing already existing on the south end of the rec center, building a new infrastructure for that kind of pool at Richardson would be cost prohibitive, as opposed to just sort of scrapping the pool area at Richardson and putting a new pool exterior of Wagner Farm. If that was, does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I just don't understand why it couldn't be some sort of multi-use pool at Richardson. Because even at the board meeting, they were saying that that it's already over scheduled. It's already overdone at the rec center, that there's you guys have we kind of reached this tipping point, so to speak, at the rec center, that it's pretty scheduled out. And so putting an outdoor pool there, and then adding the parking for that, and adding everything onto that, and along with adding, you know, the Wagner Farm Arboretum with that garden on the north end, like, are we overdoing one single area in town and then scrapping it where over at Richardson Park? I just don't understand why it couldn't be. You're already talking, I mean, there's already talk of building the facility for the pool at Richardson Park, just tweaking what that looks like, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Okay, so I think suggestions that I would have because of the last meeting, I think that it would be helpful for you guys to rather specifically define what people want as a pool.
Right.
Because that was just kind of,
Right.
that discussion, I mean, you were there, right? That discussion was just going around in circles and around in circles, right? Because I think there's a conceptual difference between an Olympic lap pool, a recreational community pool, a fun pool, and a water feature. And I think all of those terms were being used interchangeably, and I think that was causing a massive confusion.
But I think about it in terms of like Sunset Pool in Longmont. They have a zero entry toddler area, they have diving boards, they have water slides, and they have lap lanes, all in one pool.
Yeah,
I mean, there's an option to combine this. This is not like one or the other kind of a thing. And I think that's the part that's frustrating, is like, it's either this fun water park or a boring square lap pool. So it sounds, I mean, when you present it that way, it sounds like a boring square lap pool.
Mhm.
And I think there is, you can strike a balance between the two. You can have something that affects all of those things. You know, I don't have any clue on, in terms of what Sunset Pool costs to manage or anything like that. But it does meet the needs of all of those things.
And I think that, once again, I think that is kind of up to you guys to create that verbiage to get that feedback from the community as to what do you want in a pool? Do you want something like Sunset, or do you want just a big lap pool with Olympic diving boards only that can be specifically used either for community swimming during the summer or for events, right? And I think that having those definitions out to the community, the board can then get specific feedback about what the community is looking for, and then we can kind of weed through that and make better decisions on, should we just build a smaller lap pool out at Wagner and kind of do what we can with parking, et cetera, because of that issue, or should we build a large Olympic pool at Richardson and just eat the cost, which is gonna, be other issues, right? And I think the more data points we can get from the survey that you guys put out, it's gonna be easier for us to have those conversations. And once again, from my experience from that meeting, I think defining what people want very specifically and not just saying pool, but saying Olympic-sized 12-foot deep end, however big that is, lap pool versus community pool with like a 9-foot deep end versus like a Sunset, which is a best of all worlds, or a recreational pool, which would be kind of a shallower, kind of float around, maybe go up to the bar and get a drink kind of pool. Those things right now are being used interchangeably, and no one is sort of making those distinctions in the conversations. Because when everyone said, we want a lap pool, it immediately went to Olympic-sized swimming pool. And anytime someone said, obviously this is exaggeration, right? But anytime someone said, well, we want a recreation pool, it went to, swim around in a 4-foot, deep end and just kind of have a lazy pool, because the recreation side of it was the pretty, shapely, sit around on the beach pool, whereas lap pool meant you have 30-foot diving boards, 12-foot deep end, marked lanes. That was my understanding from some of the conversations that were at the meeting.
Yeah, and I think just like Berthoud Town Pool too, there can be some overlap of that, like they took the lap lanes out and that became a recreational pool.
Right.
And so, I mean, I just think that there is a way to strike that balance between this and the Olympic-sized competition pool. I mean, Berthoud Town Pool had, I think it was 6 lanes, and we were able to host competitions there. That wasn't a super imposing footprint. It wasn't something ridiculously huge. When I hear Olympic-sized pool, I think enormous, huge thing, and that's not what the expectation is either. But I do think finding something that meets the needs of the community and meets the needs of the community in a decade is something that we have to think about too, because I think sometimes those things, we look at it now and we're like, oh yeah, that's great, that'll work for a decade from now, and then we build all these homes and all these people, and then we're going, oh, now we need more. So, I mean, that's all part of it too.
Do we have any cost estimates for the different pool options at Richardson?
From what I understand, the 3 phases were gonna be about the same cost.
Okay, so.
No, but
Different-
not the
give or
3
take.
different, not any different pools though.
Yeah.
We don't have any idea what different pools might cost?
No.
Okay. I think that would be good.
Call it 20 million.
Sorry, I had a question, Keith.
Yep.
When we were originally discussing Richardson and the phases, you made it sound like they were designed partly because of like the grading and all that, and phase 1 sort of had to be done first just based on the location and the hillside and all that. Is that true? Like, is it even possible, or do you even know, for the aquatics in that 3rd phase where it's designed now to happen first?
That's how it was described to me, that he would build the project from the top down, from north down. That's why
So
the
that's,
phasing.
I think, that maybe a key piece of information is,
and that, you're right, and I think that's part of the, hopefully the survey. If aquatics is something we want sooner and we wanna jump back to like East Park Cap, maybe there's a pool thrown in here somewhere that is, you know, as a project, its own separate pool. So the idea of building a pool out here in a parking lot and then the rest of this being undeveloped doesn't seem like a good idea to start just like that. When we have parking lots and a pool hookup at the rec center, and I know it's staffed out, but we're already trying to figure out how to build more parking. So, we're already going through those talks, but, yeah, I don't know, Administrator Kirk brought up the recreation center, we have the hookups kinda to do one, the lifeguards are already there, you don't have to build lifeguard offices or anything like that maybe. So there's like a connection between there and that where it makes sense to keep the pool there for efficiency purposes. And that would be if we did like the lap, I think.
Is there an option to move the pool, like flip-flop the two smaller baseball fields and the pool and put the pool at the top of the design so that it could be part of the top end if that's what has to happen? Is that not?
I don't know that. I mean, that seems like a good idea, but
I mean, it seems like a simple solution if we're talking about building from the top down, and those smaller fields kind of seem like they could be anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a design issue. My only concern looking at the designs now is if you flop those baseball fields, then you have people coming and going from the different baseball games going through the playground that's in the center.
Well, there's a parking lot right next to it though. That's a whole parking lot between the baseball fields and the pool.
No, I mean, if the baseball fields were where the pool is, people going from the central hub of the baseball stadium would be having to walk through that playground with all of the kids as the different games are going on through the course of the day. That would be my only concern.
I
Because
guess-
the playground is going diagonal next to the,
Yeah, I'm not talking about moving the playground, I was just talking about moving the pool up and moving those two baseball fields down. Leaving the playground where it is.
right.
I'm not sure, because there's a path that goes right out to the parking lot from the baseball fields to the north and to the east.
I see what you're saying.
Could siding of the pool be part of the survey as far as Wagner versus Richardson? It could be.
yeah.
Okay.
So my idea, I guess, to kind of work through this was go through both the two old surveys and we just kind of pick questions that we thought are good.
Mhm.
And then Carolyn also the survey that she made up, so we're good.
I'm still confused about, and we don't have to dwell on this, I wasn't here, but what was the history of, at the rec center? Is there were more, the pool plan was originally larger, and then the pool got reduced in size due to cost? And there was just this vacuum of, well, what's going to happen for swimmers in Berthoud? The topic was never brought up until Richardson happened. I mean, it sounds like the public wasn't informed about when and where a pool was coming, but they had it in their minds that the town would be adding a pool at some time, but it's never been addressed.
From our side, we don't know where that extra pool came from. I know there could,
So I mean, personally, it came from board members that pushed the rec center. So like, for instance, Jeff Heidman, like he told me, oh, don't worry, we're gonna be putting in a pool. So I
We
think
need
that's
outdoor
where
pool. We do,
the pool rumors came from, was from the board members that really wanted the rec center and pushed removing the pool at Town Park, so. That's where I think it came from.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I just want to say I totally agree about needing to have really precise verbiage, but we also don't need to reinvent the wheel and think that a lap pool is only a lap pool, or a competition pool is only a competition pool, or I don't know where the word Olympic came from. I mean, most of us, as examples, have grown up around 25-yard pools, which are fine for multi-use. I mean, you can run swim programs, you can have lap schedules, you can have swim lessons. I mean, I think a pool, it should be multi-use, or it's kind of a, not a good investment. And there's a lot of examples in the community, like Sunset Pool for one. In terms of lap swimmers, most pools that I've been swimming in forever just set aside 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in midday, 2 hours in the evening for lap swim. So it's not a dedicated lap swimming pool.
But we only get it for a few months a year. I think that's the thing where I'm having a hard time, because to me, I
Yeah.
love swim, it's indoor that we really
Yeah,
more,
but that happens
more
a lot
lanes.
around the Rocky Mountain region,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
outdoor pools are a big part of public community life. I mean, most kids learn to swim at outdoor pools in the
And
summer.
not saying it shouldn't be outdoor pool, but to have a focused Olympics lap pool outdoors.
Right.
I don't
does
think
make a lot of
Olympic size,
sense.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure where that came from, but.
I might have made that up, so I didn't mean to.
Yeah,
no, it's okay.
no, I mean, 25 yards is fine. 25 meters is a little more competition oriented, but I don't think even the word competition is necessarily part of a description that I would put out for people's preferences, because it's really about
But I do-
swimming as a sport and learning the technique than having races, or it should be able to host swim meets, but it's mostly about recognizing that swimming's also a sport for people of all ages.
Which I'm not sure if a 25-yard pool, if you can host swim meets.
Yeah, you can.
You can? What, they were all
Absolutely.
25 meter?
That's preferable, but yeah, there's plenty of swim meets at 25-yard pools.
Yeah,
Because kids train a lot in 25-yard pools.
Well, if you're going 25 yards, I think you can probably go 25 meters. There shouldn't be a huge price difference.
right, I think
Right.
25 meters, I mean, just putting it as the standard, because I know that my kids swim on competitive teams and they count strokes and they, that
Yeah,
kind
it
of
is a
thing.
better
So
standard.
it is kind of what they go by, and so I would say doing it by what the standard is for Kara or whatever, but
Your kids' programs, are they summer only, right in the heart of the
no,
summer?
so my kids swam at Berthoud Town Pool when it was open on that swim team. They've swam at the rec center. They've swam for Loveland Swim, which is up in Loveland at Thompson Valley. They've swam for Longmont. They've swam in several different swim programs on teams, both Kara and USA Swim. And yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about that at the meeting. It was disappointing because they definitely, the summer program was great here. It was fun to be out at the pool and be able to host. We hosted probably, I would say, 3 meets a summer. And then we went away for 3 meets a summer. And that's something that I really think that the kids would enjoy. And in the winter months in the pool, when they're competing on the Kara team for the rec center, there's easily 6 kids in a lane practicing. So it'd be nice to have that extension of that. But again, like I said, if they swim at 7 o'clock in the morning on the outdoor pool, so they're long gone before open swim happens or that kind of a thing, so.
Okay, so with the survey, I'm guessing this is gonna take us a couple meetings to go through. We'll probably try to pick some stuff out today. We'll try to put it together and bring it back the next meeting. I don't think there's like a rush to get it out this month. So I think it needs, I still need to work through, are we gonna bring in a company, help us with this? The survey is gonna be mailed out randomly, ideally, because that's how you get a SCLE ballot survey. So there'll probably be a mailed out portion and there will be an online portion as well. So it's gonna be hopefully a legit survey for this information. So I think right now we'll look at these last 2 surveys. We'll look at Carolyn's survey, compile some stuff together. I think yeah, we'll get there. So I thought right now let's just, we got the 2018 survey up. We just go yes, no. Is it important to add something like this in there? So did you complete the town parks or the port master plan survey in 2016? I don't think we need the 2016 question. How much have you heard about? I don't.
What all are we addressing in the survey? Are we addressing the trails master plan in this survey? Or
We
is
can
it,
pick some ideas now. I know one thing we're gonna address in the survey is the naming of Richardson Park. That will be a question in there. The second, what else would be in there? So I know that's gonna go in there. we could put the list of the other port projects I showed you today, and we can say, what's your priorities on those? We could say, what do we think of the Richardson Park design, maybe, turf versus artificial, things like those could be thrown in there. Some ideas. I think there are some good things in some of these surveys that we can pull out, but I don't know if we have to go back and talk about 2016, 2018.
I mean, and personally, I'm all for making it as concise as possible.
Mm-hmm. And that's a
just
big thing.
Get engagement, yeah.
We just did, did anyone do the Our Lands, Our Future survey with Larimer County? Did anyone get that mailed to them or get on the website? We tried to put out there. So that one, as a town, we got to kind of review the responses. Larimer County hired a consultant. It was actually RRC who did the 2016 survey. Here. And yeah, I mean, there are survey wizards, I guess to say. They're just, they have the right way to ask a question, and I'm not that. I don't know those. I can't.
These were two different survey people that did the 2016 and the 2018. Yeah, I mean, I like a lot of the questions on the 2016, honestly, because it gives like degree to which current facilities meet Berthoud's needs.
Yep.
And that kind of a thing. I think that's really helpful.
There were some good ones in there.
Would it be helpful to just focus only on Richardson Park? I mean, if you expand it to how well is Berthoud meeting your needs with its parks and open spaces and trails, we're kind of diluting the benefit of the survey that we've been talking about regarding Richardson.
Well, I think from the last meeting, it was like, okay, we want to make sure people like Richardson, support that project because it's so expensive. We want to make sure the sports city before we move forward with that. We have these other projects, should any of them jump in line in priority or move them around as well? So I think, as a whole, I think we need to accomplish a few things here.
As simply as possible though, right? I agree that they seem like different surveys, but I think there's the basic survey of which of these major projects that could be in the list of projects to be done interest you, are important to you, maybe why, right? What amenity are they offering? And then here's this project that we're pretty close to getting started. What about it do you like or don't like, and why? And therein comes the ball fields versus the pools versus the et cetera, et cetera. But I think the sort of take a step back from this huge giant project that the first phase of which is going to be $18 million, we can do a lot of other stuff. If people say ball fields, I don't play baseball, who cares, right? We want this. And so, not that that's necessarily going to automatically change one way or another, but this amount of money being potentially sunk, wrong word, allocated into this huge project, which was established 6 years ago as the next major project. Does the town still need and want this major project, or do you want the board to maybe put a little bit of money into this and a little bit of money into that? I think was the sort of goal of having this survey, right? So overall, how's the port plan doing? With this specific project, how's this specific project doing before we spend a huge chunk of money? Potentially.
And I think one of the tricky parts is the previous surveys are vague because there weren't things planned at the time. So they just say outdoor aquatics, trails, ball fields. But now we're talking Richardson, Jiskowski, Arboretum, but the general public doesn't know what those are. So the only way you can survey them on them is giving them details of the projects, which then makes the survey much longer.
And there's also
So I'm not sure what the solution is to that, but if you're going to like list all of the upcoming projects, like on that thing Keith showed, most people don't know what any of that means.
Right.
So you have to then explain all that.
Right, and to comment on that as well, in certain respects, the Richardson Park is easier to ask questions about because the Arboretum, because it's a
What's up?
conservation.
buy a new car, electric one,
Yeah,
your headlights are on and your door handles are popping out, so I think.
Is it black or gray?
Is it- black or gray?
Gray.
Oh,
That's
not
mine.
me. Okay, I was like, I don't think my door handles pop out.
Thank you, sir. Whereas the Arboretum is a conservation property, there's not really a lot of questions that we can ask that the planning phase is really satisfying what can be done there. And so it's kind of like, hey, do you want us to move forward on this? Okay, here's what we're doing. Versus the Richardson, which is, hey, do you want us to move forward on this? Well, if we were to move forward on this, is there something that you would rather us do here? Versus things like the Arboretum and some of these other projects that are just like, do you want this? Okay, this is what we have to do because this is what we're limited to do. So yes, I agree that it would get into the weeds if you give options on every project, but I don't think we need feedback on every project. Really, the only feedback we need at this point is Richardson because it is so far along in the process. And do you want us to keep going with it? How? Or do you want us to stop and move into planning of something else? I think is the feedback that we need.
Right, yeah, if we want people to prioritize the different projects, not necessarily get feedback on them, that's what I'm saying is they need to know information about those projects.
Sure. Okay, I see. Yeah.
I don't personally think that we need to do that because there's not that much, like town park's already happening and the Arboretum, like you said, the public was receptive to. So to me, it makes sense. The only one that we're really unsure about, should we move forward in what phases, et cetera, really is Richardson. Because the cost is just so much higher. So I don't think, like, if the public said, like, we want Jaskowski now or something like, that doesn't quite make sense anyway.
Right.
Although the Arboretum is $6.5 million and, I mean, that's a pretty big chunk of money too, so I don't know if that's something to think about as well, that.
Should it be more values-based than specific? I guess in saying like, should we be asking, do people wanna see an outdoor lap pool regardless of location? Should we, I mean, and I guess if we go into location, if folks come back saying, hey, we want a pool, you know, a do everything pool at Richardson, versus Wagner, and then in reality, we know it's half the price at Wagner. Are we gonna go with what the town wants and pay that extra money to put a pool at Richardson instead of Wagner?
I can't answer that question.
To me, it's like, should we just avoid asking that? Because in the end,
Yeah, I think what do you want, not necessarily where do you want it,
yeah,
because
I guess
there
the
are
more I think about it, the
limitations.
more I think that that's probably the way to go. I just, with the siting, I don't think a lot of folks are gonna understand what all goes into utility connections, staffing, all of that. So just thinking out loud here, but,
I also think that where the planning is with Richardson Park, if you ask those big questions, people already have this understanding of what that looks like. So if they're saying, oh, if I want the recreation pool, then that's the pool that they're gonna do at Richardson Park. So I think if you get more vague about this now that people kind of know what, a fair amount of people probably know what those plans look like. You have to,
with the pool.
yeah, I mean, I think if you're saying,
And I guess what was put out with the pool in it to the town?
I mean, all these plans are posted, the town posts different things and, I think the plans are on the website and it's been talked about at the board meetings and so, I mean, I don't know, I just think if you're, I don't know how to phrase it so that people understand what they're voting for because I feel like if you say, well, we do a recreational pool, I think just figuring out what they want, like, do you want a recreational pool?
Right.
Do you want water slides? Do you want a lazy river? Do you want a competition pool? Do you want some combination of that? I think that's.
That's more important than the site, right? Especially when the sites are like
It
a
is,
half mile
well,
apart or
but
less,
it's
quarter
not,
mile
because
apart.
the site basically dictates what can be done. And so Wagner Park is not going to have a recreational pool outside, period. That's my understanding. If they put a pool in there outside, it's going to be lap lanes. Is that, we're not
That was
gonna
my
put a
underst-
recreational pool outside to
Oh, okay.
mirror
was
the
my
recreational pool inside.
That was my understanding as well. If there is a pool at Wagner, it will be a rectangular diving board friendly
Gotcha.
lap pool slash community. What you think of
Gotcha.
it when you go to the pool, it's that kind of pool.
Okay.
Versus there is an quote unquote option at Richardson to have either, although one will be
Gotcha.
much more costly because apparently it's more difficult to dig a deep rectangular lap pool than it is to create a shallower recreational pool.
Do we know that? Cause we don't have any bids or any idea or estimates or anything.
That was the comment that we got during the meeting, is that because it's deeper, there's more infrastructure that's necessary. And in general, it is more expensive to do one than the other.
Are you talking
Yeah,
about
but
deep as in a diving area or deep as in the existing lap lanes are considered deep and more costly?
Like a diving area.
Okay, well, that's deep. So
Because-
diving area is a separate activity, and I agree, asking about activities would be really helpful. Like, what would your family use? A
Yeah.
diving area, lap lanes, because lap lanes, the depth of what currently exists at the rec center can also be like a family swim area. I mean, the rectangular shape doesn't
Yeah.
preclude multi-use. But I think when you go into deep for diving area, that's definitely a whole other
Lot of expansion.
expense,
Yeah.
obviously. And it'd be interesting to know how many people in Berthoud have interest in a diving program. It could be few,
Mhm.
but
I
it
don't
could be a lot.
I don't think it's necessarily a diving program, but to have like a competition pool, you'd have to have a deep end. Cause they dive in
Right, but deep as
But
in
Chris-
the current depth that
9
the
feet.
rec center is.
Yeah, typically
enough.
9 feet, optimally
Mhm.
probably 12 feet, but.
And Chris also said at the meeting that the pool that's designed out there, even though it's not rectangular, he said it had a deep end as designed.
Right.
So, to me, then what's the argument for
Mhm.
making it, like kidney bean shaped versus rectangle?
Right,
They
and
both
that's,
have a deep end.
right,
I
and
mean, I
that,
know what you're saying, but when Chris said that, I thought, well,
So then that quote is
doesn't
for a
quite make
deep end.
sense
right, and that,
based on what we said.
and that's my concern about this whole process is that terms are being used interchangeably. And I think an important question that I would suggest that you guys ask is, what do you want this pool to be used for?
Activities, yeah.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
having a deep end, you can still, if you're just a recreational swimmer going on a Saturday with your friends, you can swim laps in an S-shaped pool with a deep end. You can go dive around and have fun with your friends.
No, you
you
can't
can't.
swim laps in an S-shaped pool.
If it's long enough before the turn happens.
Not necessarily, I mean, you have to have lap lanes to be able to
Yeah.
know where you're going, and then they put in, you
It
have to,
needs to be straight.
it needs to be straight and it needs to be marked underneath. I mean, that's how they know
Right,
where
but-
they are.
Could you go to the picture of the Richardson Park? Because there could be two sections depending on the size, right? So there could be a straight section that then goes around depending on the size of the pool, et cetera, right? So is the purpose of the pool specifically to swim laps only, or as you guys suggested, is it a multi-use
Right.
pool, which could be creative?
Mhm.
Is it a competition pool, which I assume has to be rectangular because of the needs of the-
Berthoud Town Pool had the area where you competed and then it moved around.
okay,
So it had multiple areas. There was like a 4-foot area, there was the competition lanes, and then there was a toddler like splash pool.
okay.
So it was all one thing. You don't have to it doesn't have to be a completely separate pool to compete or.
You just have to
anything
have
like that.
straight walls, right?
Yeah.
You just have to
on
have
each
straight
end.
walls with lines and
Yeah.
and it needs a deep
There's
end
a
so they
lot
can
of-
dive in. I mean, it's not anything vastly different from what we're seeing here. I'm surprised that there's a deep end in that, as it starts as my understanding is it's a zero entry pool according to the renderings that you showed us. So you're going from zero entry to a deep end on there.
That's
I
what
don't have
was-
all the pool details.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it'd be interesting to know what the numbers were to have some kind of basis for comparison. If it's vastly different to put a deep end in a pool than it is to build a recreational pool, or is that bid that we have for that pool including a deep end, like Chris Kirk said? So, I mean, those are all things to be thinking about in terms of cost, but I think that more of the priorities is what we're getting at with the survey. And I don't know if you just have, with the understanding that certain amenities can only be in certain places, I guess is a way to do that. Like, if it's a resort style pool, then it's not gonna be at Wagner Park. If it's this, like that's something to think about, that.
But can't we just ask them what the activities are that they're looking to satisfy, like the things they wanna actually do?
Yeah, no,
when
I
they're there?
agree. I do think that there is some benefit to knowing, well, if we just pick a lap pool, then that lap pool would be at Wagner Park, and that's all it would be, kind of a thing.
But how do you educate them?
Well, I think, for example, if you ask families, would you like a swim team program for your kids? A lot of them would say, sure, or many of them might say yes, but they wouldn't understand that that means a rectangular pool with lap lanes and a certain depth. So what's the value of the survey responses to us? Do they want the activity? Then we interpret what they want and what's possible
And
to
put it where it
design
makes sense.
without weighing them down with how many lanes do you need, or what length of pool do you want? Do you need an area deep enough for diving? Because I think a lot of parents would, if you say pool to people, they imagine different things. So I think specifying activities like kids swim team, kids swim lessons, adult lap hours, family swim hours.
But again, you run into the
Capture.
ambiguity of a lot of those things can happen at any pool, and some of those things can only happen at specific pools.
Right.
So I think that's the ambiguity of it. I think asking very specifically, having them either rank it like they've done with that survey in 2016. How important is this to you? How important is it to have a rec pool that includes things like a zero entry, lazy river, et cetera? How important is it for you to have a lap pool that could theoretically host competitions? How important is it for you to have outdoor water slides? How important is it for you to have a lazy river? I mean, I think that that's the way we go about it. That 2016 survey, I liked the way that it was laid out so that they could rank things based on their importance.
I would also suggest that you guys put a time frame in here, because that was one of the issues that you guys brought up in some of the last meetings, was that the pool at Richardson was 7 to 10 years out. And that kind of caused a stir, right? So if you want a pool of whatever type, are you expecting it, whatever quotation marks, to be within a 1 to 3 year time frame, or a 3 to 6 year time frame, or a 6 to 9 year time frame? Because if it's 6 to 9, then okay, fine.
I guess we're not getting a lot of 60-year.
It's
6 to 9
phase
year
3.
responses.
Yeah, it's phase 3, and we can worry about
Give
the
it to us
design
now.
in 6
Yeah.
years when phase 3 goes up.
Right.
If it's we want one next year, that might precipitate a different kind of decision where, okay, we're putting it at Wagner.
Yeah.
Because the infrastructure's there, it can go in, it's ready to go.
Right, but then you're
These
gonna
are-
get the contradiction of, okay, then we're putting it at Wagner Farm, but then everybody said they wanted the recreational pool. Do you see what I'm saying? You're gonna get that contradiction of everyone wants it now, but they don't understand that wanting it now means the lap pool and not the recreational pool that we also asked them about, and so then they'll come back after that and be like, but we wanted this.
Mhm.
Do you see what I'm saying? So, I mean, I think ranking the importance of the amenities that we're looking at putting in is something to think about. So I don't think we need to give them timelines, but saying like, how important is the pool to you? How important is, like rank these things based on what you think should be done first. Or like in the 2016 survey where they said you have $100, how much money do you allot to each of these things, that kind of thing. And it kind of gives a better idea of where people's priorities lie. And so I think listing those is probably a good way to go about it, because then it gives people because if you, like I said, you're gonna get contradiction, you're gonna get, well, I want it 1 to 3 years, but I want the resort style pool, and then you're gonna end up, there's gonna be a large portion of people that are mad because they were both the thing that people voted for, or asked for, or surveyed for, or whatever. So I think just asking the importance of those things gives us an idea of what the timeline should look like.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's more that just scoring how important is
Yeah.
each of these elements to you, and then.
Yeah.
That works.
Okay, so,
Just
and
assume
I don't
they
wanna,
wanna know.
I'm not arguing, I agree,
Nope.
right? But if you have a large percentage of the population that says we want X kind of pool, but really the only way to do that is to wait 7 to 9 years, how are they gonna handle that?
I think this is the moment, it's been 6 years since we had a survey, and I think this is the moment where we look at everything from a distance and say, okay, how can we do this differently? If that's the town's priority, how do we do this differently? And I think that that's important because yes, we don't have a design for, I mean, we do have a design for the phase 2 of Town Park, but it's pushed out, 8 years or something like that. So is that something that we relook at and say, well, what if we put the pool there? Because that would be something that we maybe could bring in sooner to the plan. I think that it's a matter of stepping back and looking at, these are 6-year-old answers that we're basing everything we do on. And that was, pre, 6,000 people in this town or something like that. So I think that the answers may be different, and I think that the priorities probably need to be looked at globally and say, not just, well, here's your option, this is 7 to 10 years, or this can happen sooner. I think we need to look at everything overall as what our priorities are as a town.
I agree.
Cool.
Let's start off with some, I'm gonna try to knock out some of the easy questions. Cause I mean, surveys have like some demographic questions usually. So can we roll through these survey and see if there's anything, hey, yes, let's throw it in there?
This is a good question, this one.
Things like, how often do you use town parks and open spaces?
I think that's important.
How often do you use trails?
Sure.
These are quick. And do you use the town's pool? I think I'm gonna
This
circle
one's
it.
problematic.
I'm gonna circle it for now. We'll just keep going.
I mean, if you said something like, how often would you use a town pool? That might be a better question than how often do you use the town pool?
Yeah, and this one's related to just we had that one pool and now it's like
Right.
every time. So
Does
Right.
this mean a town
So-
pool at
Town park.
Wagner Farm, or, I know what this one meant.
yeah.
What does this question mean now?
So
Yeah.
right now it would be like how often do you use the rec center pool?
Mhm.
I think it would, but we don't have to keep it. I mean, just draft. We'll pull some. Because we're gonna come back next month. I'm gonna have a list, and we'll
Perfect.
try to narrow it down from there. How often do you use the town's athletic fields? I was, when I look at this question, I was curious if a parent was filling this out, did they fill it out as like, I don't use the field, but my kid does. I don't know if these
Your
questions need
family.
to say, do your family.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah,
I also think there was a designation between athletic fields and ball fields.
Okay.
There was, both things were listed in the questions.
Mhm.
And so I think when I think athletic fields, I think ball fields also. I think football field, soccer field, ball field, all of it. And I don't think that there's a designation in my brain between them, but so I don't know if that makes a difference in the way people answer, because I definitely saw that ball field was listed separately.
Well, and you could put in parentheses each of the
Soccer field,
sports that,
yeah.
I don't know if
What
we do
you're
that, but
alluding to,
yeah.
yeah.
Do we feel we need a letter grade on their overall opinion of?
No.
no,
Just
I
that's
agree.
I don't know what it accomplishes.
Yeah, right.
I think this would be a good question. What one thing could the town change or work on to improve parks and open spaces?
And there's different ways you can ask this, like the $100 question. What would you spend your $100 on if you could? Improve trail access. There's multiple ways we can
Sure.
maybe hit this one. I'm gonna circle it as a good one to work through.
This one was really hard for me to understand what the bar graph meant. I guess it's hard to,
This is the 2018, man.
yeah, the way the 2016 survey was set up, I think was easier to understand.
Especially since
And I
B
think-
would be gone now.
B is gone, well,
B would be gone, and so all of those percentage points would be split up elsewhere.
One thing that I thought was vague when I read this, and I still think it's not helpful, is the verbiage about new trails as opposed to what trail areas people are responding to.
Do we
You know, that-
even need to include trails in the survey? I mean, I think the it's kind of laid out.
I think
Trails
trails are pretty
plan.
well outlined.
I think.
Yeah, I would almost replace it with, bike paths or bike lanes.
Hmm.
And aquatics, that word doesn't, again, it's so vague, it's not really providing any useful feedback. What does aquatics mean to the people who are completing
Mhm.
these surveys?
Really?
Skip that one. Skip that one.
This is, I mean, these are tough questions. Would you vote yes in favor of?
Yeah, really
to
poorly written.
Oppose 1%? Is that?
Yeah,
That's like political speak.
Mm-hmm.
Will you vote no to oppose or yes to oppose? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've had to read all these 3 times to make sure I understand what I'm reading.
I'm kind of skimming through these and stuff. Okay, so that's let's go to 2016. Do we think we want to get into demographics as like gender, age, income?
Do you need that to prove that it's a viable survey? Is that part of like the surveying legitimacy? Is that why they ask those questions in this? Like to prove that you've gotten a
Cross-section.
right, a cross-section of the population? Is that, I mean, that's the only reason I can think of why you would ask these questions.
I think so. Yeah, it depends. Do you guys think you need all this stuff? Do you need, well, I mean, they're pretty quick questions to answer usually.
I think
But then it
age
just-
for sure is really helpful.
It adds to the survey, right? You're trying to make
Right.
this a 10 to 15 question survey, probably max.
So,
So it's like, do you want 5 demographic questions? Something like that, so.
Could the whole demographic sheet just be a drop down for each section? You could just have this as being one question, and then there are drop downs for each section within the question.
So like question 1 is.
Question
gender,
1 is this,
Yeah.
this.
and then
Demographic
within question
information.
1, there's gender, age, household, et cetera, whatever information needs to be in there.
And you're saying like this is all electronic version?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, well, there'll be a paper version and electronic. Since it's getting mailed out. So some people love filling out the paper, is what I've learned.
But it's only gonna go out to like 400 households?
I don't know.
Is that what you said? Oh, I thought that was what you said.
Oh, I don't have that number. I'm not sure what that. I don't think it's Larimer County, how many went out? The whole county for their open lands, open survey, that they threw out like, they mailed out 7,800. And they got 1,000 returned mailed back, which is pretty good.
Usually, feel like when I fill out surveys, this is like the last page or the first page, and it's just like you pop through these and then you move on to the actual survey questions. I don't think people consider these survey questions.
But we I think we agree, we like gender, age, do we want income, ethnicity in there?
what are they used for?
The questions?
No, the responses.
Responses?
I think it's just to see that it's an equal cross-section or like see what like if only women responded,
All certain
like,
groups are represented, yeah. I think the family makeup was the one that I thought was useful, how many kids there are in the family and what ages.
Do you think it's important? I mean,
I
So
don't know that any of
outside-
these really,
Sorry.
no, go ahead.
Outside of the town of Berthoud limits, is that within the growth management area, or does this go kind of out beyond the
I
growth
think that
management
would
area?
be what that means, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
no, not just the growth management, because some of them,
It's bigger than that.
I have to figure out.
Just curious, yeah.
Yeah. We got a lot of people that say they live in Berthoud that, or outside. I didn't figure out how that worked. Okay, we'll put together a little demographic section. Bring that back. And then there's a usage section, how much are you using these things? People
Don't-
want pocket parks.
Yeah, I don't like the graph on this. Could it be simplified?
I just think less questions on a page.
Right, it will look different.
These are the results, right?
Yeah, these are just the results, so that's what's, I couldn't find the questions on there, but it probably said, yeah, how many times do you use these, and you're just ranking it 1 through 5? So it'd be like pocket parks 1 through 5 right here, and these are all the results, so.
I just had, when I was reading through it, one thing I wondered about, so at the very top, it says pocket parks are the most frequently used facility among invitation respondents, but if you look, in no way is pocket park the highest use of anything. Green, yellow, orange, like I don't understand where they got that answer from. Cause if you're including, I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. How do they figure out that pocket parks are the most used among the invitation respondents, so the people in the top row?
I mean, just cause like from here to here means you're using them.
Right, but that's not, like, if you look,
It's not
so
the
if we're counting
highest.
orange to green, that's not the highest use. That's why I'm asking how they got that answer.
Which one's the highest use?
So I would say that,
It's like town park. and
well,
swimming
yeah,
pool.
town park,
And so
swimming
So
pool.
the only reason they wouldn't have, this is the open link.
That's open like
Right, but
that.
even if you're looking, oh, I see what you're saying. It's just in the
Invitation sample.
invitation sample. Okay, I see where it
Yeah,
comes from.
No, thank you.
so, and that's what's funny about it is they basically say like the open links, it's okay to look at it, but you
Yeah.
shouldn't
Gotcha.
follow it. You're supposed to, it's not a statistically valid.
Significant, okay.
Yeah, so, and you'll get both results. When we did the Larimer County survey, they almost came back identical, which was pretty interesting.
That's good.
And most of these look like there's trends, but I think you're hoping you don't get, you can get 3,000 skaters from.
As far as pocket parks, are those neighborhood parks? Is that what that's
That's what
alluding
that
to?
means,
Because
I
that
think
doesn't
so.
seem like something that Port should even be like considering in use of parks. If it's like neighborhood parks, it's not something that we're managing maintenance or money or building or anything. Those are parks. I mean, I guess in the sense that we want the neighborhoods to keep building pocket parks. Is that why they include that?
It's a good question, because they're not parks and
They're not
recreation
town-
facilities.
yeah.
I think so, but yeah, but we have squeezed some developers into adding open space and parks into their development at Farmstead. I know that happened.
Well, they're required
Well,
to.
they're required to.
The town,
They're required to.
yeah.
But hasn't there been some back and forth on initial plats and hasn't the town pushed developers to
So,
minimize
like-
units and add park space?
At Pioneer Park, that development, wasn't there, they didn't have to put in a park because it was done before that was a rule by the town, is that
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I mean, there's been some of that, but that was
Yeah.
just I think that was more at the kindness of the developer than it was us. I mean, I don't know that we,
Really kindness of a developer.
Squeeze.
Huh?
well, it's the same developer,
No,
isn't
I'm
that the same
kidding.
developer that put in all the money to or was that Farmstead that helped out with the adaptive park?
That was
Those over
Farmstead.
a little
That's
bit.
Farmstead.
Yeah, but yeah, with Pioneer Park, that was the developer who decided to go ahead and put extra park space
Really?
in the
Wow.
development for
That's-
the.
Yeah, I
That's
think they
great.
did it on their
Oh,
own,
for
which
the-
is
that's
great. I
amazing,
mean,
yeah,
it's, yeah,
that's amazing.
but and I know
But I'll
like,
just speak, there's more to that, like,
Yeah.
he
Right.
like donated it to it, he got a tax break doing it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
Okay.
wasn't just.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
like-
there
I was just
something-
curious.
Kindness of
But it was still
developers.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is awesome.
There
I'm
was
very
something
glad that
that-
it worked that way, yeah.
when we're talking about priorities, though, I wasn't sure why the
Yeah.
pocket parks were ranking in the priority list in terms of what Port is focusing on.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Keith, I'm sorry to slow down, but
Mhm.
is now when you would like them to go over what kinds of questions need to be on this kind of slide, or is this just the kind of slide you're getting feedback like, yes, we want this kind of information, and then you're gonna come back with
Right,
more
I think-
specific
I
information?
think I'm gonna try to do that, yeah.
Okay.
So like, do you guys want a usage type question
Yes,
of our current facilities?
Current usage and then, yeah.
absolutely.
So there'd be a demographic section, there'd be a usage of current facilities section. priority of a Parks and Recreation question, but
Seems low value.
Yeah.
how familiar are you? Like,
What's that even mean?
If they're not familiar,
I
they're
don't think-
probably not filling
Yeah.
out the survey.
Yeah, no, throw it out.
I don't think any of this.
No.
I just keep my mind at the likelihood of somebody completing the survey in a thoughtful way. It just goes up if it's a shorter survey. So I just.
importance of current facilities. So this is when you get the breakdown of something, it's important, are we feeling the need? And they kind of put those two things together. So that's, and that's, I think you put those two together, you get this thing, right? It's high importance, but needs not met. I'm hoping they give me the Larimer County survey. So it's kind of done, they're kind of finalizing it, but I was gonna share with you all too, once it's there, but, it said, they thought it was one of the first times they've seen the company that did it. It was like, what's the priority ranking and are the needs met? And almost all the needs were met in the county. It was, I don't know, seems good when you see something like that.
Yeah, they do a good job.
We do. I think it's interesting when we look at this and think about 2016 and the things that we've built since then. Because we've built outdoor basketball courts, we've built volleyball courts, or not did we build a volleyball court? We took one out.
We took one out.
That's right. We built a skate park. Those are all in low importance, low needs met, and we've built tennis/pickleball courts. We've looking at building ball fields, and those are all on that low importance side. So I think it's interesting just to think about what the data showed. It'll be interesting to see what it shows now and what people's priorities are, because even like the community garden comes in right on the line of low importance. And so I'll be interested to see what people are looking for now.
So we want to try to get something that's, how important is it to you and does it feel, is it currently filling your needs?
I wonder if you need usage, if you have importance.
We did though, didn't we? A couple of slides ago.
We did. I'm just saying. I'm just thinking back to myself. I guess asking somebody whether how often they use something versus how important it is to them. I guess what's the difference? I mean,
Well, I don't use the bike park, but I know that it's important for everyone else, and so it's
so
good to have.
because you're answering for the community. Yeah, that's no. I'm just trying to think through it. That makes sense.
I've heard people talk about this. My
Yeah.
friends are needing this,
Yeah.
but I don't use it. But
Yeah.
We get that, and then what they need to serve. This is, I guess, personal priority preference. I don't know if you need anything like that in here, but that would
No,
get it
that-
pretty detailed.
that other button is really useful for a data point.
Anything.
I think it's kind of duplicating a lot of the information asked in previous questions.
Right, for us as staff, if we saw, I mean, you'd have parking, litter, you usually have things like that on here, aren't they? Is there crime in the parks, things like. Let me see that, but I don't think we're. Top areas of focus.
Seems
So
somewhat
this is-
duplicative.
Is this areas of focusing our attention for the future? Is that what this is alluding to?
It doesn't. Like, are we saying these are the things that are important that we think Berthoud needs to work on?
Just seems like you could, with the importance section, address these items.
Oh, I wonder if they said we should,
How do you know what questions they drew on to create this summary? I mean, isn't it somewhat subjective? I don't
Well, I think it's
understand
like
how they
select
came
your
up
top
with
3
this.
community priorities from a list of 9 items, so that's probably what the question said.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think something like this, if you had the different projects and had them either ranked or with one of those like importance bar things that they had on the graph on the other page.
Yeah, it might be a good time to bring in the projects by name.
Right, the specific
Yeah.
projects in here and even, I mean, we're down to whatever it is, it's like 6 projects, you know, so if we can specifically, and then give a really quick, like, you know, Richardson Park. And then, well, do you wanna talk about the aquatics, different things first, and then talk about the different parks? And what they include, so to speak?
I don't know that order yet, but.
Okay.
Let's go, top areas book is. Looks like they're just combining data points there. We need to get into the programs at all.
These are, again, I mean, they're so subjective, they're so broad categories.
I'll leave programs out for the moment. Put in the maybe.
Yeah, I guess unless we're gathering data kind of for things beyond port, I guess it could be helpful if that's the case. But
There's just additional comments. There's the $100 question. Anyone liking the $100 question?
I like it. It seems like there's too many elements there. That it should be a little easier to split up, and you know, other enhancements is on there, and just some. It seems like it could be a more concise list.
And Kaylee and Carl's point, it just says expand aquatics. That just can mean so much.
Yeah.
Indoor,
I
outdoor
think
splash
aquatics
pad, et
is
cetera.
just doesn't give us any valuable feedback,
Right.
you know, as opposed to what aquatic activities, how do they prioritize different activities? Or lap, or
just like,
swim
yeah,
programs, or
wrap-
swim
ranking it.
team, or family swim, stuff like that.
And then it gets into open space. This is how are you using it?
There's 50 pages of comments, literally, not, that's the actual number.
50,
Yep, yeah.
one of page 1 of 54.
I think having a question on there that we didn't really hit on was, you know, saying something to the effect of what, in an outdoor aquatics facility, what would be your priorities? And then saying recreational pool, lap pool, water slides, water park. Like, or not even saying water park necessarily, because again, that becomes very ambiguous. I think saying the very specific things and seeing what priorities people have.
Yeah, if they, I mean, part of the motivation for this survey was about pools and speaking about pools or aquatics in general won't provide really helpful responses unless people are saying, we want family swim time, we want senior water aerobics, we want swim team time, we want swim lessons. Because that will drive some of the decisions about location, size,
Mhm.
depth.
So outdoor aquatic facility, what is important in an outdoor aquatics facility? So what are the choices? What are
So,
the,
Lap
pool.
swim, adult lap swim.
Well, it doesn't have to be adult though, if you say
Oh,
adult.
yeah, lap,
I mean,
lap
pool,
time,
a
lap
pool.
time.
Slides.
Family swim time.
I think we look at the amenities, cause the family swim time can happen in either pool.
Right, that's program, more like
Yeah, so I
programs.
think we look at the amenities and say, our lap pool is important to you? Is a, resort style recreational pool important to you? Is a outdoor slides important? Is a lazy river important? Are diving boards important? I think being very specific about those amenities and what that looks like will give us the best information. If recreational pool and lap pool come in number 1 and number 2, then maybe we see what we can, whoever designs the pool or does that, see what somebody can come up with as what that cost is and what that looks like.
Competition pool.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you get some comment about being able to have swim teams?
Competition pool.
Yeah, I think lap pool, and again, I think that having some sort of very short, succinct description of each thing, or resort style pool or recreational pool, whatever you wanna call that. I think people very much understand what like resort style pool means. It means like TPC's pool, where it's, whether or not you have a swim bar is questionable, but just kind of that fun pool.
It's curvy.
Resort style pool versus lap pool. And I think you give an option for, maybe even ask like resort style pool versus lap pool versus a combination. Make that an option.
Waiting area.
Is this something that you would do both things and use both sides of this particular amenity?
A toddler waiting area.
Yeah, the rendering for that resort style pool had a 0 entry, like toddler area in it.
Diving area.
This is, Carolyn put the survey together.
Yay, Carolyn.
It's,
So this was before I knew you sent out the other survey, so obviously the other ones are much better. And I just stuck to really like the Richardson type questions, so these could be ideas of kind of how to get our questions answered, I guess.
So for Richardson, first one's like importance of the phasing, right? I'd have to ask if that's even a question. We can,
Yeah, so then otherwise, just phrasing it as ball fields versus pool.
right, I feel like that's,
Cause that's what kept coming at the town meeting with Chris was, well, like, one or the other will happen first. And would people rather that be ball fields or aquatics?
I still feel like, I feel like the simplest answer is switching those 2 small fields with the pool, putting the pool at the top with the 2 big ball fields. Creating that top pink area with the pool on the east side of the park and the 2 ball fields. Then you can take out the town park baseball fields because they'll be replaced with these baseball fields. And then move on to phase 2. I don't know, like I said, I know that this is, I don't know if this is an option, but again, like I said, I think looking at this globally is like, how do we get the things done that people want in a way that
Well,
makes
and
the
I
most
guess-
sense for construction?
But that's a question to be answered after the survey, right? Cause if people say ball fields, then that's a moot, like, then we'll start there. Or if people say they want the big water park, then that makes sense to be, like, so I feel like once we get our answers, then we can explore
Well, that's why I think that's
Yeah,
a good, I feel
yeah.
like that would be a good,
I agree,
compromise.
I think a question asking them an either or doesn't feel very productive
Yeah. and-
versus the job of the town and the committee might be, how can we do both in phase one?
It could be that, yeah. I would just say maybe it's not there because the water park thing's so expensive itself. Now we're taking we're trying to get the project to be like 18 million, which is what the town, they think we can spend on this project. And mixing the couple fields and the water thing's probably gonna be more than that, is my guess.
I will also
Well, and we don't
ask.
know, but, we could potentially do both. If a pool at Wagner is significantly less expensive, and we have been able to pepper in different projects along the way, so, it might be financially viable to have phase one and a pool at Wagner within 5 years or something, so we just, again, have to explore that once we get survey results.
I can also directly ask about that option and see if there is a reason that it can't happen, and I'll come back to you guys before the survey is even kind of brought before you guys again.
Yeah, I just feel like that might be a way to, I know it brings the cost up, but. I don't know.
Was there, I'm sorry if I missed something, it was maybe when I went out to the car. Why is the outdoor pool at, if it were to happen at Wagner, is only restricted to lab? So I mean, that it won't be available to
Size,
other
I think.
users,
Probably duplication of amenity
the
too.
indoor
Yeah, in your.
area
I
already.
think it would be similar to what used to exist. I think the thing was, they're not gonna put slides or
Okay,
a lazy river or that kind of stuff there because that already exists.
so it would have amenities more similar to the old town park pool?
That's my understanding.
Okay,
So it would still be a community pool for everyone to use and have lap lanes but it wouldn't probably have the bigger stuff.
So
Although Will Carspec said they should make the slide go in, you should be able to climb
Yeah.
up the thing and then decide if you wanna go outside
Yeah.
or inside.
that was my first thought, it was a slide to nowhere, most slides go outside.
So the old town park pool, which everybody I think remembers fondly, was too small for our town now. So
Yep.
we need to keep that in mind.
that what we could build at Wagner Park is probably similar in size
I
to
don't,
what was
I have
at-
no idea, but we need to keep, people want the old town park back, but our town is now twice the size. So
Yeah, I
that
think
needs,
it
that
could
needs
be
to be kept in
bigger at Wagner.
mind.
Like
And-
similar design but larger.
Double the size.
And I think that my guess is whenever the decision was made to cut the pool, indoor pool at Berthoud Rec now, in hindsight, that was not a good decision. We probably would have rather allocated funds to make it bigger if we knew how popular and what we were gonna end up with exactly. So those are the kinds of things I think we wanna think about when we're thinking about things that are gonna be 3 or 4 years down the line. What's our size gonna be? What do we really need? We remember Town Park Pool fondly, but it was jammed, and that was years ago.
Yep.
So we need something for our town as it is going to be, as best as we can do that.
And I don't know size-wise, I drove by there trying to get an idea of what that space looked like, and it didn't look to me like it was vastly bigger than what Berthoud Town Pool was. Is that fair to say?
Keith, can you get Google Earth on that?
I don't have Google Earth downloaded.
Let's see.
Cause Google Earth has the one I was just looking at on my little iPad has the layout of, it has Berthoud Rec as it exists today. And I was just wondering if you could point out where the Wagner Rec exists today, where the pool would go exactly.
Here. Off the road, so this is like that green open space, and then I think this is where we're talking about.
It's a pretty big space.
Well, if you compare it to where the pool was, I don't know that it's.
I'll have to do that. It's a good idea.
Old pool. There was locker rooms and things over here, and I mean, you probably still have to do that kind of stuff out here as well. I mean, it's.
So that was about 40 by 40.
Not that big, you're right.
I mean, I feel like it's a similar, it's more of a square where Berthoud Pool came out of, as opposed to the rectangle that is.
So that's the area for Wagner, that's
Mhm.
limited to
That's South
north
Lawn.
of the access road?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha, okay, yeah, I gotcha, there's some constraints for sure.
See that little thing saying it's not 100 feet right there.
And you said there were locker rooms as well?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say it's like 75 by 75. It's not very big.
Interesting.
But you wouldn't need the extra facilities for locker rooms, cause those would be just inside.
I think you
You'd probably
would.
have to have a bathroom. and
You'd
stuff
have to have
like that, I think.
bathrooms and you'd have to have some.
A shower, an outdoor shower. But I mean, it makes sense that the investment would be really reduced because of using the infrastructure that's already there instead of building everything.
I just don't think you're gaining much room in terms of size of the pool. Like you were saying, like to make a bigger pool, I think
I
you're gonna have
wonder
a.
how
But you
this
can use the
footprint
whole,
compares
whole
with the.
green area, that corridor going through is completely removable.
Yeah, it looks like
The whole.
over
green
200 feet by
So you
300
could go to the
feet-ish,
whole
something like
green
that,
area.
pretty big.
And how's that compare with what they're thinking of for Richardson?
Oh, I don't.
Hard to say, right? It's probably comparable.
If it's the whole green area.
Right, you've gotta have concrete and pad and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. I don't think that it's gonna be that much bigger of a pool than Town Park was. Cause when you look at that, like, that square that you'll see on there that's the dirt, that was the pool. And then all that grass was where people hung
Which
out.
is nice, yeah.
So if you take that green square, you have to include where people are gonna be sitting along the edges and the north and south of it.
Just things to think about.
Yes, another question that I have for you guys, I think that came up in a different context, and you guys would know this better than me, but how many neighborhood pools exist now where they didn't exist when it was just Town Park Pool? Which might take a lot of pressure off of the public pool.
Absolutely.
Most neighborhood pools that I'm aware of are too small for
The neighborhoods.
a lot of activities.
I would say, let's see,
But they didn't exist, I mean,
Heritage Ridge, Prairie
they
Star,
overlapped
TPC.
a couple years maybe
Mhm.
with the old pool.
Yeah, I think those three.
Generally speaking, the neighborhood pools did not exist when town pool was established.
That's Carl's point.
Yeah, I think they do probably take some of the slack for open swim time,
Mm-hmm.
but none that I'm aware of could be training pools or swim lesson pools.
Mhm.
There aren't any diving boards.
Just that training for only a few months a year part for me is tough. It kind of, back to what you mentioned of the laps pool, the bigger lap pool was needed indoors. I think that was kind of,
Most swim teams train year round.
right,
You
but
know,
that's,
outdoors
you're
in
only
the
giving them
summer.
a little help for the summer.
Yeah.
But Lauren's point was Town Park was used for that, and it was a nice thing to have for the town, and I think we all agree that would be great. I wonder how that footprint compares with the pool you brought
People
up in
train
Longmont.
in steamboat outdoors all year round, so.
That's a hot springs
Oh, yeah.
heated, hot
So
springs
heated
pool.
heated pool, okay.
Super
so-
nice. Yeah.
Can we get one of those?
Yeah. Can we get a hot spring?
Yeah. We could geothermal heat it, right? Just have the water go up on top of the rec center, heated by the sun, and then come back down into the big pool. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
So
That's how they did it down on the way.
Yeah.
Up in Garden.
you're looking at
Yeah.
100 feet
Yeah.
here, so,
Those
I mean,
ones.
it's a similar
Yeah.
footprint, and that includes a kid's pool, a like 4 to 5 foot pool, and then lap lanes over here.
That's a similar footprint to what we're thinking of for Richardson,
Yeah,
but that
and
would
then,
not fit in that
I don't think that would fit in at no.
Wagner.
Yeah, so then it has 3 diving boards, 2 slides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 lanes. That's a similar footprint to, yeah, what we're looking at Richardson.
Okay, I'm gonna try to wrap this up
Yeah.
tonight,
Mhm.
but I'll try to come back, demographics section, usage of current facility section, importance versus needs met, projects list, areas of focused type question, outdoor aquatic facility priority type question, and then I think I can try to throw something together with some Richardson questions maybe. 'Cause I don't think we have anything on there. If you guys do you want a question about artificial versus natural grass? Do we want something like that in there?
I don't think it's a bad question, especially when a lot of these questions are budget oriented and we're talking about those fields costing I think it was an extra $600,000 a piece to do artificial turf.
I think that's what-
So if we're putting 6 fields in there, that's $3.6 million. So budget wise, if that's what we're
For
discussing.
artificial turf compared to regular, but then you have the
No, you're-
advantage of easier maintenance over the lifetime of it, is that the deal?
That's the hope, yeah.
It's a lot of mowing to offset 3.6 million.
Water's not cheap.
Water's not cheap, but you're already talking about spraying the fields off between games. You're already talking about using water on those fields despite them being,
They have to be sprayed off, they have to be sprayed off.
Because of heat, they have to be sprayed off
Oh,
in
really?
between games.
No.
and run off into that lake and whatever chemicals are in that turf and what, the PFAS chemicals are not just in the rubber mulch that goes in there, but they're also in the turf itself. And there's been reports of that getting into the groundwater, and it's all of that irrigation goes right into the reservoir. So things to think about.
I think the turf question is important, because I know, like Chris Kirk said, his kid really likes to play on it, but in the conversations that I have had with people, every answer has been the opposite. So I really think that would be a good question, because I don't, my kids play soccer on turf and they don't like it, but I don't know anything about baseball. And so I think that's a good question, and the health concerns, I mean, every person that I've mentioned has brought them up, so, I think that question should definitely be on there.
I guess if there's not a huge long-term water savings and so on and so forth, why was it initially proposed?
I mean, there's huge water savings.
Okay,
I mean,
that's
because
what I.
you're going from, I think it takes 15 minutes to water to try to cool down cycle.
Okay.
But I mean, it's all non-potable water that we use it for.
How often do you have
A
to?
big thing was like, so that you can,
So it's long-term cost over, that's why it was proposed.
and then having, because if these facilities got built, they would be highly used, and not just from our town, they'd probably be a regional type
Yep,
thing.
yep.
And then when you have that going on and you have all these cancellations because a rainstorm came through and you got the infield wet, and
Mhm.
then you get to the end of the season and everyone's trying to use the field in games. So I think another big thing was just they're always available.
Yeah.
You can even use them throughout the year.
Yeah.
if the weather's right. So.
Makes sense.
But I mean, other places like Loveland Sports Park has one football field that is turf and everything else is grass.
Mhm.
So is it something where we make one field or 2 fields turf and then put grass on the other fields to save $2 million?
And I'm only like bringing up like, cause I've tried to wrestle with that question in my head too. If you're programming all the games out there, and then you have a rainstorm happens. Well, then half the teams get to play and the other teams
Right,
if you
it's a
can't
tournament.
type thing.
And
So
at LSP, the soccer fields just opened up recently. So people are trying to practice on that turf field, and that's the one field that's just getting a ton of use.
Mhm.
And the soccer fields aren't used year round, that's for sure. So there's lots to consider.
yeah,
I do think the health concerns have to somewhat be played into it though, and everybody's very quick to dismiss them because it's tough to really prove that. But I do think that there is a component of that. I mean, like I talked about at the board meeting, there are six of the Philadelphia Phillies who died of brain tumors that they're trying to directly correlate to the turf on their field. The city of Boston no longer allows turf fields to be built. The state of California is working towards the same thing, city by city. So, I mean, yes, they're maintenance saver, they're a water saver, but at what cost? So if we put in $3.6 million fields and only 5 kids, down the road we find out that it caused cancer, that stuff has to be weighed into these decisions as well.
Yeah.
I think that that's really important, and I hesitate to dismiss it because they can't 100% say it yet, but there's all of these cities that are saying, you know what, this is probably a bad idea. And so I want that to be very much brought forward, and that's why I talked about it at the board meeting, because I think that hindsight is 20/20, knowing that, hey, maybe we should have dumped all those chemicals into our drinking water and then finding out that it caused cancer,
Mhm.
if we have the information now and we're looking at it going, yeah, maybe it's not the greatest idea, then I get the savings on water and the savings, I just wonder where that break even point is too on $3.6 million. How much water and how much maintenance go into $3.6 million increase just to have turf and a possible cancer risk?
Mhm.
Cause if you possibly told me that something could cause cancer in my kid, I wouldn't do it, right? I mean, isn't that something like if somebody said, hey, that might cause cancer?
Well, I agree. I don't know enough about the data on it. And I guess, is it PFAS that you're worried about?
That's one of
Or-
the forever chemicals that they talk
Yeah, I'm well
about.
aware what it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I just wanted to make sure I'm
Yeah,
tracking.
that's-
And then as far as just, I guess, typical maintenance of bluegrass,
Mhm,
there's some risks there.
of course.
So I guess I'm just trying to, I don't really have a great, feel for what the real risks are with turf. So it's something I'll definitely do some more research on and look for some of that data that's out there.
And like I said, causation and
You said
correlation are
State of
different.
California.
State of California just recently passed legislation that each city is allowed to decide for themselves. And so they have several, San Bernardino County, lots of different places that are starting to outlaw any further turf fields. The entire city of Boston has said no more. They've completely stopped any turf fields being built. They are not pulling out the ones they have, but they won't let any more turf fields be built. Philadelphia Phillies Stadium is looking at pulling out their turf, like those kind of things. And you think, they've probably done some research to to make those changes. So there's definitely, they're starting to pull it out of places and look at not doing it anymore.
Mhm.
And even now, like with the coconut
Choir.
the coconut rind filler that they're putting in it as opposed to the black, what do they call, black crumb filling, it's still not taking it away. There's still those chemicals in there.
Putting coconut rinds in, I have not.
Yeah, yeah, they need some kind of filling to make it softer.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
that, but I didn't know that's what they were using.
That's one of the options.
Everyone smells good after the game.
Yeah.
And my son stood up at the meeting and talked about how he hates playing on turf, so everybody's gonna have an opinion about whether or not they like it or not. I will say the boys typically, when we play on that turf field, unless it's because they can't play on another field because of mud, they hate that field.
Mhm.
So, and that's just
The kids hate it too.
personal opinion, yeah.
How'd the high school get one? Was there conversation about that when they put one in?
I wasn't here when they put that field in, so I don't know.
I think the
Yeah, I don't
information
know
is,
either. Sorry, but I did have a conversation with a mom this week whose son is playing goalie for the high school. And she brought up concerns with the soccer coach and he said, yes, those concerns are totally valid. If you are comfortable with him like playing goalie, I understand. So to me, that speaks a lot like the coaches agree, like it's not, there are risks with playing goalie because you get all that stuff in your
I wish there were 10 years more of experience and data on it. So we're kind of at a point where
Yeah.
it has to be examined, I totally agree. But it's expensive and there's not enough experience with it or, data that we have available right now to perhaps make a decision. I think it's worth asking a question for sure on the survey.
Yep.
If it's out there and there's concerns out there, I think we're obligated to address it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, definitely if there's, I did not recognize that this is that big of a thing, in the United States right now. So if that's the case, then I agree.
Sounds good. We good with, going back to this in a month?
Okay, on to staff updates. Or is there more?
No, I'm good with this. I'm trying to think of some updates.
No?
No updates.
All right, committee updates? Done?
I'm about to lose service, sorry, so I just have a quick question. I was asked about the hockey nets being removed at Pioneer. Are those going back up?
Yeah, I think Sammy ordered some new ones. So those should be going back up, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I noticed somebody did some work on the bridges at Hillsdale, east on the North Bridge. There was a couple wobbly boards and things replaced, so I just want to say thanks to whoever that was. And some more materials put down on that little temporary connection that's also connects to just off
Grand
Nebraska Avenue there, yeah. So, thank you.
Yep. Welcome. That's Paul's team. And then I think they're gonna do more work down at Hillsdale too. It's kind of weird. Some of them, some shifting of those posts.
Yeah, some of them were really, I mean, I wrote you once about the one that got yanked out, but some of them were really spongy, but they seem to be not as spongy, so somebody did something to them.
Yeah. Good. And Heritage Rich took down those signs.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Smooth battle.
Oh, gosh.
That's it for me.
All right, I don't have any updates.
I have no
Do you have any
updates.
updates?
No updates.
Carl?
This was the entire topic of last week's meeting, so unless you guys have specific questions. The one thing I'll bring up is I'll ask specific questions about the water amenity up by those two smaller ball fields, and is that possible, and if not, why? And I'll get back to you guys before the next meeting so that you can, and I'll CC Keith on it in case that might be something that you guys want to add. I guess Keith, how would we do that sunshine wise? If I have a question answered, would I just give you guys the information in a public email? And if that public email turns out that it might be a question on the possible survey, you can go ahead and put it on there. That probably wasn't English. So
I think you're just answering the question, right?
Unless if I get an answer to that question, do you guys want a question on the survey about possibly changing the phases?
I think we'd like to know the answer to that question first.
Yeah, so we could discuss that at the next meeting with your answer and.
At the next meeting before, where the survey comes out, if you guys want to add that to the survey, that can be a comment at the next meeting. Okay.
I'm sorry, Carl, can you repeat the question? You're taking to the
I'm going to-
trustees?
I'm going to ask staff if why is it possible to switch these small ball fields and the water amenity?
Okay,
And if not, why? And if so, how much would that cost on top of the original quote?
okay.
And then I will give that information to you guys, which can be discussed, and if there needs to be a question on the survey for you guys guys. I don't think I need to discuss that with the trustees. I think that's just a question for you guys for the survey.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right,
Move to adjourn.
all right,
My second.
meeting adjourned.
Can you say this before it disappears?